Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're doing a feather pour. It's my first time using feathers in dice. We're using Let's Resin 1:1 epoxy. I'm not using the fast cure, I'm just using normal cure, which is between 12 to 24 hours, depending on what the weather is like in your area. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm making a bit of a barrier in the dice. I'm just adding a little bit of clear at the bottom, because I'm using a normal dice mould, I'm not using blanks. So I'm trying to make sure that the feathers don't hit the face of the dice. Unfortunately, I have lost the demold to this video. So the next thing you'll see will be the photographs of the dice, because I'm a klutz, I've told you this before. I must have accidentally deleted it. Well, being stupid. Now we're on to the colours. And the first pigment I've put in is a UV reactive turquoise colour. These pigments unfortunately came from Resin who went bust. But Charlotte Parkinson over at Resin Supplies Den can get you some amazing pigments that are UV reactive or thermal, etc. And they're like half the price that Resin ever were anyway. So now we've got the Resin pink. And that pink goes like a deep purple. Then I'm going to pick a Let's Resin chameleon colour. I think I'm just searching for a cup at the moment. These little plastic cups I reuse. They might look clean and they might look brand new, but you can peel the resin out of them. So they're great. They're like little Revel mixing cups. And they're soft, so it's like really easy to peel the resin out of them. But this is the Let's Resin chameleon colour in sapphire, I think. Just for a deeper tone, just so everything's not like the one note. And lastly, I am going to be using an interference mica that flashes pink when the light hits it. Interference micas are basically micas that look white, but when the light hits them, it gets interfered with, which is why they're called interference. So it looks white, but when the light hits it, it'll look pale pink. A lot of people call them ghost micas, aurora micas, or magic micas. It's all the same thing. They're all interference micas. And interference is the correct term for them. The others are just fun names. And they fit, they're great names. But a lot of people don't realise that they're exactly the same thing. So I've just added a bit of resin to each, and I'm just going to let that resin sink in a little bit before I mix them in. Because sometimes with powders they clump and don't mix properly. But we're going to move on to the feathers. So I'm picking up a feather. And these are just bits I've cut off some larger feathers. And I'm dipping it into the resin so that it's entirely covered. And then I'm popping it into the dice and just moving it around till it sits where I want it to sit. And then I'm adding a little bit of a different colour into that one. And now I'm going to speed it up a bit because this took a while. And you don't need to sit through all of that as I pop in every individual feather. As you can see, I've got them in several different colours. I've got them in a mint colour, a pale pink colour, which sort of matches the two UV colours that I added. And then I've got them in these dusky blue colours, which is what I added the sapphire mica for. So I basically matched the colour of mica to each of the feathers I'm putting in there. And I'm trying to add more than one into each dice. So I just cleaned off my tweezers, and now I'm just filling up the dice until they're about 3/4 of the way full. My D4 was actually too full, which is why you saw me take a little bit of resin out. But that's what we're doing. We're just trying to get them all to 3/4 of the way. And then we're going to mix up the colours. I gotta say, I'm really excited for Halloween. Is anyone else excited? I love spooky movies and horror stories. To the point I'm thinking of starting a different channel that's just to do with spooky things. I could live Halloween all year round. Back to the pour though. So I'm just dropping in some of this turquoise. And I'm just putting it in one little spot on each of the dice. In hope that it will drop through. And now we're just mixing up the Let's Resin Chameleon turquoisey blue colour. It's such a lovely colour. I love Let's Resin's chameleons, they're so nice. But I tell you what, Charlotte Parkinson has nicer ones. I'm not even kidding. Her chameleons are amazing. And I need to afford to be able to buy a full set. Maybe I ought to start Patreon. So I'm adding some of this like sapphire blue. Same way I added the turquoise. Just putting it in a particular spot in a hope that it will drop through in that area. Then we're going to mix up the pink. If I did start a Patreon, what kind of things would you guys like to see on it? Like, maybe I could do somebody wins a D20 every month, or extra footage that I don't post on here, like I could keep a pour back and only post it on Patreon. Let me know what you'd be interested in, because that would help me a lot. Lastly, we're going to use the white. And I don't know if the interference will show on camera. I'm just making sure it's fully mixed up. And then I've added all of the colours in. Even though it looks like I didn't film that part. But I have added the white in. And now I'm going back and adding a second blob of all the colours. As you can see, my dice are pretty full at this point, but because the mic is heavy, it will still drop through. So I'm just adding little extra bits. I did learn that maybe I could fill up my dice a little less than I did in this one to get more colour in there, but I'm pretty happy with what came out. I'm just making sure my lid's clean. And then I'm just coating each of the numbers. As usual, I just put on a little bit of resin to make sure that no bubbles get trapped in the numbers. And I've done it in clear because trying to match up the colours would be a nightmare. So I'm just using my long leg lighter now to pop any bubbles sitting on top of the dice. So as it turns out, I hadn't lost the footage, which makes a change. So we're going to go ahead with the demold. This is me just loosening the lid slightly before I pull it off. Then we give the mould a squidge, and what that does is it cracks the flashing on the top. If you've got thick flashing, that might not happen so easily, but the flashing on these was super thin, as you can see. And it just comes away nicely in one sheet, and it's just done and gone. Then we're just going to flex the mould. This just releases the numbers so that they don't pull quite as harshly when you push out the dice. So just giving it a nice little flex before we start pushing things out. I'm actually really happy with how this set came out. It has sort of a dreamy vibe to it. I think once they're polished and sanded, that they're going to look really nice. And you can just see that you get just the little drips of colour coming down, which is exactly what I was going for. Sorry, I'm losing my voice today. With those wisps of feathers. But I think in future what I'll do is hairspray the feathers so that they stay more together and in shape. Because they can go quite translucent when you pour resin on them. But we're just going to pull out each dice one by one. Got some really nice strips from the colours that got put in there. And there's not too much of the colour, because the original feathers were really pastel, so I didn't want a huge amount of mica colour in there, because it would have overtaken the feathers, but I think we've got the balance just right. Excuse my dirty nails, I'm always making something, so my hands are very rarely clean in that way. I've usually got powder or something all over them somewhere. I think when I ink these, I'll just ink them in white, maybe a sparkly white. I think anything more than that would influence them too much. But we're just waiting for the D20 now, which will come out shortly. My mould absolutely covered in crap. I usually use sellotape to clean my moulds because detergent and things can have an adverse effect on your mould, and I like my moulds to last as long as possible. But here's the D20. I think it came out really nice. I'm actually really pleased with the whole set. And I'm going to leave you with some photos. See you soon, guys. Bye.